If you are a chocolate lover like me, you are in the right place. Today, we are making a chocolate cloud cake. This cake is like the little black dress of cakes. It's classic, rich, perfectly understated, and positively irresistible. Oh, and did I mention it's super easy to make? So our brown butter is all done. What a beauty! Amazing. Just like magic, you guys. So you might be asking, what is a chocolate cloud cake? Chocolate cloud cake is an airy souffle-style cake that contains no flour or leavening. It bakes up with a fudgy brownie center and a paper-thin, almost brownie-like top that falls away as the cake deflates. Also known as a fallen chocolate cake, it's very elegant and deceptively easy to whip up with just a handful of basic ingredients. This is the perfect dessert for dinner parties or date night. This cake delivers just the right amount of fancy without being overly fussy. And it's naturally gluten-free, which means everyone can enjoy it. With just 8 simple ingredients, you probably have everything you already need stocked in your pantry, so there's no need to run to the store. Here's what you'll need. We have 5 large eggs at room temperature, semi-sweet chocolate. Try to use a chocolate bar rather than chocolate chips. More on that in a bit. We have granulated sugar, unsweetened cocoa powder, espresso powder, cream of tartar, vanilla, and unsalted butter. To make this recipe, we'll start by melting our chocolate and our butter on the stovetop. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and turn on our stovetop, about medium-high heat, and we're gonna melt 9 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate along with 1 stick of butter, which is a half a cup of butter. I'm just gonna melt that over a double boiler till it's nice and shiny and smooth. We're using a high-quality chopped chocolate bar for this recipe. I prefer using a chocolate bar because the quality of the chocolate is generally better than chocolate chips. Chocolate chips tend to have a waxy finish on them, which will alter the texture of your cake. I like to melt our chocolate and butter over a double boiler instead of in the microwave, because in the microwave, it's sometimes hard to get the right temperature and you don't want your chocolate to seize up. So use the double boiler method if you can. And it's also helpful to chop your chocolate into smaller bits so that it melts a little bit faster. Our chocolate is starting to break up and melt, and the butter is almost melted. Don't walk away from the pot. You want to keep stirring to make sure the chocolate gets to be nice and smooth and doesn't seize up on you. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure that all of those chocolate chunks are fully melted. I can feel a few of them still in the bottom of the bowl, so I'm just going to keep stirring until it feels really smooth. As you can see, it's super shiny. Okay, that looks perfect. Nice and shiny, fully melted. We're gonna take that right off of the stovetop and just let it cool for a few minutes while we prep the rest of our cake. Now that our chocolate and butter are melted, we're gonna set that aside to cool for just a few minutes, and we're going to prep our 9-inch springform pan before we continue on with the recipe. This is the pan that we're using, and we're using a springform pan because it has removable sides. So once the cake is baked, you can take the sides off and then remove the cake from the bottom. I also want to line this cake, so we're gonna go ahead and grab a piece of parchment paper, some scissors, and a pen. And we're just gonna draw a large circle on the parchment paper. I'm just gonna trace around like so. This is so that we can easily get our cake off of the pan once it's baked. So I've got my circle here on my parchment, and we're just gonna cut that out. And it doesn't need to be perfect in any way. I like to cut around the outside of the circle just to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room with the lining of the pan. I love these pre-cut parchment paper sheets because they generally are much flatter than the ones that you get in the roll, and they're easier to work with because the ones in the roll just kind of tend to roll up on you as you work with them. It's super annoying. Okay, so that's our perfect circle. We're gonna set that right on top of our pan, but actually I'm gonna spray this first so it sticks a little bit better. Just gonna grab a little bit of non-stick baking spray and give it a little spray. You could take your parchment and just move that around a little bit, and it's gonna give it a better stick there. We're gonna take the 2 sides of our springform pan and set them right down into the outer ring. press that parchment paper down and in. And then you're just going to assemble your pan using the little notches on the side that are provided. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and press that down all the way, make sure it's nice and tight. Then we'll move to the other side, making sure that your parchment inside stays nice and flat. I know this seems like a lot of trouble, but it is totally worth it because this cake is so good. Okay, there we go. We have our pan. It's all ready for our batter. It's nice and secure. We're gonna set that aside for now and get started on our egg whites. It's important to note that separating cold eggs is actually easier than separating room temperature eggs. So if you wanna do this process earlier on, feel free to do that and then just let the eggs sit out at room temperature. We have room temperature eggs, so we're gonna separate them into two different bowls, one for whites and one for yolks. I like to do that in an entirely separate bowl just to make sure we don't get any yolks mixed in with the whites. And then we'll add that to the respective bowls. So let's get started. We're just gonna start with our eggs here in our smallest bowl, being careful not to get any of the yolk in with the white. That looks great. Put the yolk over here, and then we can take this egg white and slip it right into our bowl. And then we'll just do that again. So we're using 5 eggs in this recipe. And you might be asking, why so many eggs? Well, a chocolate flourless cake has no flour in it and no leaveners. So we rely on the eggs to give it all of that rise and beautiful lift. There we go. Okay, yolk goes in there and the white goes here. Egg number 3. You can also invest in a little tool called an egg separator. You can find them online or sometimes at your home store nearby, and that will actually do the job for you of separating your eggs. I am gonna do it the old school way, one at a time. Okay, here we go. Egg number 4. That one came apart really nicely. Perfect. Yolk in there, and the white in here. Okay, this is our last egg. Fingers crossed, this one comes out, and it did perfectly. Yolk in there, and our whites in there. Perfect. Okay, so now we have our egg whites and our egg yolks. We're gonna mix the egg whites with a little bit of cream of tartar and sugar, and the egg yolks are gonna get mixed with vanilla. Okay, our next step is to add our egg yolks to a large bowl. We're just gonna drop those right in, and you wanna scoop out all that yolk. Perfect. And then we're gonna add to that our vanilla extract. Use a nice quality vanilla extract because we're making this cake with very few ingredients, so every ingredient matters. You want the ones with the best flavor. We're just gonna give that a little whisk together. Nothing serious, just a little whisking to combine the vanilla with the yolks. Perfect. And then we're gonna go ahead and set that aside. Okay, it's time to make our egg whites that are gonna get folded into the chocolate and egg yolk mixture. So we're gonna use a stand mixer for this. You can also use a hand mixer. I really like to use a stand mixer for this situation because you get some really nice peaks and it's a lot easier since it's a lot of mixing. So we're gonna lift this on up and I'm gonna pour my egg whites right into the bowl. And we're gonna add our teaspoon of cream of tartar right in there. And I'm gonna set my sugar aside right here because we're gonna use that in just a second. So we'll tilt our mixer back down and we're gonna mix this just on low speed. Get that cream of tartar worked into there and then gradually increase the speed. And we're gonna mix this on medium speed until we start to see bubbles form on the top. And then we're gonna take a tablespoon and slowly incorporate our granulated sugar into the whites. And this is gonna help us get those nice firm peaks. Okay, I'm gonna take the speed up just a notch. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our bubbles on top. Hopefully you can kind of see what's going on there. Whoop. We've got bubbles on top. So we're gonna just slowly, 1 tablespoon at a time, add this granulated sugar, and we're gonna keep it on medium-high speed. I like to wait about 10, 15 seconds between each addition of the sugar. This really helps it just get incorporated with the egg whites before you move on to the next tablespoon. So you'll notice that your egg whites will start to get a little bit thicker. They're going to get a little bit less yellow undertone and more white as they whip. Perfect. I'm going to take the speed up just a little bit. Mixing egg whites is a little bit of a skill, but once you have it mastered, it's a really great skill to have because you can make so many different recipes with egg whites. Takes just a little bit of patience, but it's totally worth it. This cake is going to be so delicious, and I can't wait for you to see how it comes out of the oven. Okay, next tablespoon goes in. We're almost there. Okay, we've got our last little bit of granulated sugar going in. And we're just gonna let that mix. I'm actually gonna crank that speed up a little bit higher. So really trying to bring that egg and sugar together into nice stiff peaks. Okay, let's check on our egg whites here and see how they're doing. So you can see that when I take the mixer out and then take the whisk out, it falls over. The egg whites just fall over. These are not ready yet, so we're gonna keep mixing. Back in you go. Okay, let's take another peek. Oh, we're getting closer, so much closer. See how they're getting stiffer? They're less liquidy, a little bit more firm, but the top of the peak still falls over. So we're gonna go just a tiny bit further so we get the perfect texture for our egg whites. Okay, I think that they're perfect. Let's check this out. I'm gonna stick my whisk in there and then lift it up. And as you can see, we have a nice stiff peak. It falls over a little bit at the top. That's totally fine. This is the perfect texture for our cake. So we're gonna stop right there and we're gonna put all of this together. Okay, we have all of our components now for the cake. I did realize that I forgot to add my cocoa powder and espresso powder to the melted chocolate and butter earlier, but it's totally fine. We're just gonna add that in now and give it a quick stir. That cocoa powder is just gonna make this extra chocolatey, and that espresso powder that we added is not going to make your cake taste like coffee at all. It's just going to enhance the flavor of the chocolate. Okay, so that is incorporated nicely. We are gonna go ahead and add our egg whites to our egg yolk and vanilla mixture, and we're gonna start folding that together. So I'm gonna take my egg whites here off of the mixer. Maybe. Okay, I'm just gonna give that a good tap. I like to use a nice big spatula for this because you're gonna do a lot of folding. So we're just gonna get a nice giant scoop of our egg whites. Probably about a third of what's inside this bowl is gonna go right here into this bowl. And then we're just gonna mix this together and incorporate that white all the way in with the yolk. It kind of looks like this. Super pretty. Okay, that's perfect. Just wanna get it a little bit incorporated. Then we're gonna take our melted chocolate and butter mixture that has the cocoa powder and the espresso powder in it, and we're gonna drip that right into the bowl. Oh my goodness. Things are getting good here. This is awesome. You guys know I love chocolate, and this cake is a chocolate lover's dream. It is so good. It's so beautiful. It's like a big, giant fudgy brownie. Okay, that looks great. Now we're gonna fold this together. And keyword is folding. You wanna make sure that you're not rapidly stirring because we're trying to keep all of that air that we had incorporated into the egg whites going here in the bowl. You don't wanna deflate those egg whites. So we're just gonna fold very gently, bringing this together. You can see we're getting all those swirls and ribbons of the egg mixed with the chocolate. Okay, that looks perfect. We're not gonna fold that all the way together yet. I'm gonna go ahead and add more of our egg whites to the bowl, and we're gonna do this at about a third at a time. So that looks perfect. I'm gonna gently fold these in. Again, we're working really hard here to keep that air from the egg whites in this cake. It's gonna bake up almost like a souffle-style cake, but then when it comes out of the oven, it's gonna deflate and get really fudgy inside and has a beautiful crackled top. Okay, so as you can see, we're just folding, we're making sure to get the sides of the bowl, and then we're also scraping down against the bottom to make sure we're mixing all of that chocolate up and around into the whites. So I'm gonna add some more egg whites now. This is so fun. I love this part. This is my favorite. Okay, here we go. Mixing again. Folding, folding, folding. You can kind of hear it. It sounds like super airy in there when you fold. It's like almost like you're folding foam, but it's way more delicious than that. Okay. I'm gonna scrape the bottom a little bit more on this time because I can see there's some chocolate resting at the bottom there. Okay, here we go. We have one more addition of our egg whites. I'm gonna take this off so I can make sure to get every last bit in there. Scrape down that bowl. Get all of those whites. Okay, that's awesome. Set that aside. Clean that up. All right, here we go. This is the last bit of folding that we're gonna do, and then this batter is gonna go straight into our pan. You guys see how light and airy that's getting? It's just the prettiest batter ever. It's so gorgeous. And I give you permission to lick the spatula because this batter is so good and so chocolatey. I dare you not to lick the spatula. So good. Okay, here we go. Now, this part, you wanna start to be careful. This is where the overmixing happens. So you definitely wanna mix until you don't see any more streaks of egg white, as you can see right there. You wanna keep going, but you definitely wanna make sure that you stop before you folded all of that air out of your batter. So we're just giving this a nice stir, big motions, folding from the bottom. I think we are just about there. I'm just kind of peeking, making sure I don't have any streaks of egg white or any chunks of like solid chocolate in there. This looks perfect. Okay, can you see that? So beautiful, so delicious. Okay, this is gonna go right into our springform pan and we're gonna get it off into the oven. All right, so here is our prepared pan, and this is the fun part. We're gonna put this batter right into the pan. It's just gonna fall right in. Here we go. Here we go. Oh my goodness, look at that amazing batter. It's so delish. So much chocolate, all in one place. Make sure you scrape that bowl and get all of that batter in there. Perfect. And then you're just gonna take your spatula and scooge it around, making sure you're getting it all the way out to the edges of the pan and gently, gently flattening the top. You don't need to do too much to it. Don't play with your batter too much. We don't wanna overwork it. We just wanna make it nice and even in the pan. Perfect. And there you go. We're gonna bake this at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. So beautiful. Okay, so this cake rises up nice and tall thanks to all of those beautiful egg whites. I'm just gonna set this down, and what's gonna happen is it's gonna start to deflate as it cools. You can see that the cake is beginning to deflate, and after about 30 minutes, you can take the sides of the pan off of your springform pan, and then you're gonna cool it completely before slicing. Okay, here is our finished cake. As you can see, the cake has deflated a lot, and there are all these beautiful cracks on top, and it's almost like kind of gone concave on itself, which is what a cloud cake does. So this cake is just so pretty right out of the pan, and you really don't need to do anything to decorate it. If you want to make the cake a bit more fancy-ish, you could add some whipped cream on top, toss on a handful of fresh raspberries. You could drizzle it with dark chocolate ganache or sift it with a little bit of powdered sugar. You could also add a scoop of vanilla ice cream, which I highly recommend. It's so delicious. All right, let's slice into our cake and let me show you that beautiful brownie-like texture. Here we go. Okay, this cake is so fudgy, super chocolatey, and absolutely lights out delicious. That first slice is always the stubborn one. Okay, here we go. I just want you to see that fudgy middle. There you go. Look at her. Oh my goodness. So these paper thin crinkled tops are very much like a meringue almost, a chocolate meringue on top, and that comes from those egg whites that we used. And you can see that the center is nice and fudgy. This is just the best texture. Like I said, so good with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top or just a little bit of whipped cream. So grab the recipe in the show notes below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I can't wait to see you next time.